Hi, I'm a professional editor and I've always wanted to expand my horizons by talking to other editors and sound designers, music composers, visual effects supervisors, essentially all the magicians who silently and invisibly work behind the scenes. This series is an attempt to make the invisible artists visible. I hope you enjoy the conversations. So here we are with the first episode of The Finest Cut. And my very first guest on this series is someone who's very dear to me and someone who I think I've literally kind of grown up with in this industry. She's my roommate from FTII and a very, very fine editor, very acclaimed editor who's got some fabulous films to her credit. And I'll also I have a little story or an anecdote about Dipika. When we were just kind of start off in our specialization here in FTII, we were all really struggling with winding film roles and that sort of thing. And Dipika would just get in there and like a pro, she'd just end up winding the rolls while we were fumbling and dropping the film all over the floor. So, and I remember so distinctly, our professor Jetu Mandal at that point had said that someone like Dipika, she's a natural. It just comes to her, and I've seen this over a period of time. It's just effortless. All the work that she puts into her craft is really effortless. So, Dipika, welcome to the series, and thank you for being my guest. My
Thank you
first
so
guest.
much. Of course, I don't know this story, but yeah, well, I don't know what to say about that. But thank you for this amazing introduction. Yeah, we've pretty much grown together as
Yeah.
editors and we've known each other's works, although we can only talk about each other. We've never really worked together to,
Yeah.
say how we are inside the rooms.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, but it's amazing what you're doing here. Like, we have enough going on in our kitty with exports and deadlines to meet that we are doing this also.
No, but
Yeah.
I just want to start first and foremost with I want to know, as I said, and this is so pertinent, you know what J2 pointed out, that you are things, you know, this craft generally I've seen tends to come to you. It seems very effortless. I'm sure there is a lot of effort to it, but does it feel like when you're in front of a machine or when you know you're going to start editing, does it just flow or do you kind of labor over things? How does it work for you?
Of course, it's not labelless. Every time I'm starting something, I'm shitting bricks and I'm wondering, okay, how? When am I getting fired? So, considering editors are the most dispensable members of
Dispensable, yes,
the crew.
absolutely.
So, yeah, none of it just comes immediately. Of course, it takes I have a very long drawn process of coming to what has to be done and where it has to reach. We all have our ways of cracking it, but I don't think it comes effortlessly. It takes decent amount of research and, in my case, getting into the director's head. What is the ultimate aim of the game?
Hmm.
I start with that. Ki what is the aim of the game? I'm not one of those कि देखते हैं ये footage का क्या बनेगा, which also kind of reflects in the kind of choices of films that I have taken. Like, I'm not a big fan of films which are like, I won't say documentary because I've done a very small amount of documentary, but I need to know what are we saying. What is the it need not be a message, but there has to be a story, something that we are trying to say. It can't just be a collection of shots and consume it and understand for whatever it's worth.
True. So, which brings me to my next question. When you're considering a project, as you said, you know, there are certain kinds of choices that you have made in your career. When you are first approached with a project, what are the things that you're kind of looking out for, and what is it that convinces you to say yes?
um a lot of things. First, what is the story? What is the script? Even if it's just a two-liner, it's an action sequence, it's a period film, it's a rom-com. So, somewhere to understand, is this something that I'm in the mood to do, and secondly, who I'm working with. Because script, yes, is priority, but who I'm working with is also matters, because we are all different personalities, and that comes out in our work. So I can't be spending 6 months or 7 months with somebody in a room where I'm not able to gel my thoughts with, or even get through to that person. So these two things primarily, what is the story and who is telling the story, is where I start with. And then, of course, reading. And I like to sleep over my scripts. I can't do this, read it in one go. I like to read my scripts, sleep over it for a couple of nights. If the story stays with me, something, of what is being told, or what the attempt of being the attempt is being made stays with me, is where I feel, yeah, maybe, I want to be a part of this and see how this, because something worked for me in that story. So, and I like dramas. Again, pretty much all my films are drama. And, so what point of the drama has, stayed with me? Is there also what is the treatment that we are approaching? I have certain, call it moral ethics or way of looking at things. It has to match at some level. Otherwise, I won't be able to do justice to whatever the director wants to say. Maybe I'm not the right person to say it with them. So, in that case, I kind of would not go for it.
Has it ever happened that, or hypothetically speaking, what if you were presented with a great script and you really want to do the film, but the people are not necessarily people you want to work with, but you're really sorely tempted by
it
the
has
story?
happened to me. It has happened.
Okay.
It has happened
But how
to me
do
because.
you? Yeah.
I think, directors are also very sensitive people. They are not complete idiots. They also get a vibe where I am. They understand. How much they'll be able to. Get their uh, story out from a person who's not going to gel with them. It's you've got to land somewhere. The kind of films you watch, or the kind of ideology you have, or it could just be the kind of music you listen to. It could be just about anything. And of course, I have done certain projects where later on I've regretted it. We've all done that, but each project has been an experience. I have been sorely tempted that, I really want to work on this script, but I don't think I can work in this setup. So it's best to part ways. And in some cases, I have told the directors also, this is my reason. I'm not willing to work in this setup, because at the end of the day, my sanity is more important than any project that I'm doing. So, yeah, it has happened.
So, following from that, and a little bit of overlap probably with the first question, but what are the things that you're looking for in a script? Almost sort of, do you have check boxes? Because I know most times, I kind of read the first 20 minutes of the script, and 20 minutes in, I know whether or not I want to do the film. And there are like check boxes for me. For instance, like I like to have the story introduce the conflict very early on, versus the tendency of introducing it in the second half of the film or whatever. That really puts me off most times. Do you have any such check boxes? And also, the second part to that question is, how do you spot red flags? And what kind of red flags are you looking out for when you're reading the script?
I don't think I have any check boxes. Again, like I said, I try and read them like stories rather than being very technical about them. Because in my experience, whatever's on the script, 50% of only of it materializes after the shoot. A lot of it is like, वो script में था लेकिन shoot नहीं हुआ, लेकिन ऐसे नहीं हुआ और उसको post में संभाल लेंगे. तो I तो presume कि वो होगा, कि इतना अच्छा लिखा है, बहुत अच्छी बात है, इसमें का सिर्फ 50% आएगा मेरे पास, and then I have to figure out the rest of it. So I going with that assumption, I try and read it like a story. Am I even interested in this story? Why am I telling this story? What is, not every story has an ideology or a thought, but like I said, कुछ तो होगा ना बोलने के लिए कि एक लड़का लड़की का भी romance है. There are 50,000 romance, films like you have a Ranjana where there's a stalker, which is completely against the kind of film I would believe in. But then you have a DDLJ, which is also a stalker film, come to think of it, but just told in a nicer way where it stays with you. It's like, oh, those nice moments are nice. I would love to do that. And I've done films like that where you're like, असलियत में ये नहीं होता है, but at least कुछ मजा आ रहा है करने पे. Uh, and so that's what I'm looking for in a script. Story क्या है और कैसे बोल रहे हैं, क्या बोल रहे हैं हम लोग, is what my biggest mudda is. Like, for example, one of the scripts I read, it was a nice subject, but I was very worried that it's going to become very preachy, at the end of it. And my first meeting with the director, I very blatantly asked him, are you trying to go in that zone? Because I don't think that's the right way of bringing about this subject. We don't have to tell anybody what to do. We just have to. You have a great story otherwise. And so, it was a great meeting where the director was also very accepting of what I was trying to say and not get insulted by it, and was able to convey what was happening. So it turned out to be a great association. And similarly, I have my own things that I look for in a script, wherein I would ask the director, why is this happening, why is this character behaving in a certain way? And if I'm not getting a convincing answer, that's like for me a bit of a red flag. Treatment is kind of a bit of a red flag, because people come and say, "वो कुछ graphics में कुछ ऐसा कर देंगे और वैसा कर देंगे." Those are red flags for me. You've got to be clear what you are visualizing at the end of the film. We can only aid it, but you've got to give me a lot for me to aid you in bringing that on the table.
True. Interesting, because I think increasingly one comes across directors who actually want feedback. I think early on in my experience, people were not very sort of happy if an editor came back with feedback. But I've seen this change over the last few years, that the first thing they say is, we like our editor to be very involved with the process. And they're really kind of looking out. They send the script, they're looking out for your feedback. So in keeping in that vein, how do you like being involved in prep, like going for narrations or kind of sitting, going over the short breakdown, that sort of thing?
No, I don't. I like to go for a narration, because that's the only time when the director is actually narrating. Nobody narrates a script to us. So I at least understand what is, the emphasis of something, for the director in the film. So I like going for narrations. I'm not particularly fond of sitting on through short breakdown, because it kind of inhibits me. I feel like, up karo, you've hired a DOP, you're a director, you guys are more competent than I am to tell you ki aisa shot le lo, waisa shot le lo, because there is a lot more than just, taking a close-up in OS in filmmaking. And today with digital, it's completely changed. 80% of the films are shot with like one shot, and then you're just hunting your, bits out of it. So, although I've been a part of few short breakdowns, I kind of stay away from it. The only time when I kind of interfere in it is when I keep asking my directors, what are your transitions? Because nobody thinks of transitions. Ek scene khatam hua, and how you are moving to the next one. Is there a story motivation?
Absolutely.
Is there a dialogue motivation? Everything can't be music laga diya yahan se wahan tak, everything can't be just a white city shot or a atmospheric shot. So kuch to socha hoga, which also comes into how what's the treatment of the film, Are we doing entry exits? Are we doing sharp cuts? You've got to plan a bit of it. before you shoot, at least have an idea of how you're going to be doing this, because I feel it affects your performances, how your punchline is going to get delivered, how
Absolutely.
your expressions are going to be, where are the pauses going to come, because
Yeah.
at
Exactly.
that
Like the
level,
rhythm of the edit, I feel a lot of times
hmm,
is like it gets really choppy. Is if you're just like kind of rushing from one thing to the other,
yeah,
and no one kind of seems to know what is wrong. And then it's obviously because the transitions are not
yeah,
functioning
yeah,
well or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, they say कि हाँ थोड़े white shots लगा दो, city shots लगा दो. अरे मतलब you can't just throw in city shots. It
Yeah.
has to have a purpose. What kind of a shot, day, time. What are we looking at in the shot? So I like to discuss those kind of things
Hmm.
beforehand. And repeatedly I get in, what's the treatment that you're looking? Are you looking at something really snappy? Then your characters also have to move in that rhythm.
Yeah. True.
It
True.
I can't make a languid sequence where people are just doing yap 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 yap. So those things have got to be thought out beforehand. So there I like to be involved, or at least have a discussion
Absolutely.
to understand how to approach it, the footage that's going to come to me, to put it together.
Absolutely. Totally agree with you on that. So then, once we're through with the shoot and all of that, what's your process of viewing the rushes and the dailies? And when you're starting the edit, is there some kind of a process you have, or some kind of a workflow?
So I don't sit and watch my dailies on a daily basis,
Daily basis.
because
Yeah.
मुझे कुछ समझ में नहीं आता है.
Right.
I try and approach it in the sense that I get my associate or assistant, whatever team I have, to give me a few scenes lined up, even if they are bits and pieces, for me to understand what's happening.
Yeah.
I don't want to start on a blank canvas, because there is a certain, exhaustion हो जाता है by the time you come down to fine
Absolutely.
cutting. So I'm like, गंदा भी
Absolutely.
है, एक shot भी है, लगा के दो.
Absolutely.
Make it a time, make
Absolutely.
it a line.
Absolutely.
20
I
minute,
think it
15
probably
minute.
it also helps in kind of identifying some problems early on.
Exactly. If
Like
I'm busy
performance
cutting this dialogue to that dialogue,
yeah,
I'm lost in
yeah,
कि करना
yeah,
क्या है.
yeah,
So I let them do it, even if they are bad cuts. I let them do
yeah.
it. And my one instruction in general to them is try and use whatever angles they are, even if they're unusable. Even if you
Exactly.
know that
Absolutely.
it's unusable, just put it in your
Absolutely.
lineup. I'll
Yeah,
know
yeah,
at least it
yeah,
exists.
yeah, yeah.
So I know कि ये
Exactly.
एक एंगल है, ये एक एक्सिस है, ये मेरा मटेरियल है, और ये सीन है. अभी इसको what's my step 2? So if the lineup is really bad, then step 2 is giving feedback कि do it this way. But if it's somewhere close to what I think is required in the scene, then I wait for at least 4-5 scenes to come together.
Right.
Again, it doesn't make any sense, because I'm going to start the scene with someone entering the room, coming, sitting, saying dialogue. For all you know, I'm going to pick it up somewhere in the middle. So I wait for that little chunk to come to me. And then when I'm looking at each scene individually is when I sit and watch my dailies. What am I looking for? What expression am I looking for? Because till that time, something might have been an okay take, but it doesn't work in my flow.
Yeah.
So watching the dailies just randomly, हाँ कुछ आया है देख रहे हैं, makes no sense to me at that point of time. Now when I know what I'm looking for in them, then I have the patience then to watch 10 takes and identify of the 10 takes what I need. Otherwise, all 10 are as good or bad for me.
Right.
So that's
Right.
the kind of process that I follow. I do look into my takes. I don't just accept what my assistants are giving me, because a lot gets left out, some expressions which they wouldn't have thought of. It also gives me the chance that maybe they have come up with something which I wouldn't have thought of. So it's
Sure.
an interesting amalgamation.
Sure.
So that's my process of then putting together my first cut, which I always show with a disclaimer, prepared to be depressed for a week. Just don't fire me, come back, we'll have a discussion. This is just what you had written, what you have shot. I have just put it together for you to see.
But that disclaimer never works, because everyone kind of watches like this is the final cut.
Yeah. So I always put a disclaimer now कि देखो, You will be depressed. Come with some time. You'll watch it. You'll go home. You will cry. And then we will come back and address the issues, because I know what the issues are. But if I start removing stuff and cutting it right now, you're going to ask me to put it again and then take it out at a later stage. Dekh lo. This is what you have written and shot. All of it is here. Now let's play with it.
But do you feel this thing that you said that, the first cut, people get really depressed? Do you feel this is more if you're working with a first time, like a debutant director, or it also happens with experienced directors?
I think it happens with experienced directors also. A little lesser. But the thing is, they've shot everything, what they had scripted. There was a thought behind why it went in the script. So I respect that thought. And you continued to shoot it. So, it must have made sense to you at that point of time. Until I put it on the timeline, until I see it not making sense, I don't want to dismiss it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of time it has happened where I've dismissed something, but later on it has come to my, to save my ass later on.
Right.
A lot of scenes, we said, ye kya boring scene hai, pakao scene hai, but you realize that you threw something out, but it was probably some very crucial thing which helped put other things in perspective.
Right.
So I don't like to dismiss it right in the beginning, or at least, be convince my director or be convinced other way why it should or should not stay. So I let my first cut have everything.
Your first cut has, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Also, is there a particular sort of sorting of your material that you like to instruct your associate or the assistant?
I'm trying to understand what in terms of, like there is in a feature film, there is, of course, there's a scene-wise breakdown, and then there is your bunch of shots which nobody knows what to do with. Right. And then there are your montages and songs which I leave right for the end. Yeah. And but what has been shot in terms of technicals, I let them sync sound, which is most of the films are sync sound now. Sync sound has to be there. I also kind of like to have my camera sound in along with my sync sound. I like to have the option of turning it off. I know it bothers my assistants and it's very irritating but it just gives me the option of just listening to what the camera has also captured, because sometimes there's a lot of extra coming in through that. Right. Sometimes it just is there, at least at the offline stages, that's better for the presentation, So I let that be. Usko hatao mat. Then, shots of various speeds, I prefer to have them at the original speed that they were shot and convert and give it to me, because I've had an experience where somebody has just converted all of it and left it. And I'm like, I didn't even know there was a high-speed shot that existed.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because they're like, arey, lekin sync nahi ho raha tha. But you have to give me the option of choosing either or. And, when you're working, you don't go to the source footage most of the time. You're just working with your sub-clips. Yeah. So a lot of time you end up missing, and then it's an embarrassing situation where they're like, nahi, humne to shoot kiya hai high speed and haven't used anything. That, and I have a particular way of how I like to view my rushes. So that I like my assistants to follow, besides your bins and your scenes and your episodes, how we break them down, which is, I guess, common to all of us. But there's a particular way I like to watch my rushes, and I'm very particular. Just do it this way, so that when I'm watching it, I know exactly where I'm going. And I have a certain way of memory, I remember beginning milega mujhe ya end mein milega mujhe was timeline ke. So I like to have it set like that, so that it's easy for me to even tell somebody, beginning mein there is a stake, of this color you will find, which is what I want you to replace. So it just, that's my way of working.
Right. So scale of 1 to 10, how organized are you?
Very. You know that.
1 to 10.
Okay. I think I'm 7.5.
I think you're more, but okay.
No, I'm very disorganized. I'm not going to tell you which part of it, but I am. But I'm fairly organized.
Right. And you expect your team as well to follow that level of organization at all times.
Totally.
Right. So just from the perspective of that we like to be organized in our approach, but we are also nowadays especially really racing against time in terms of deliveries, and we are also expected to put in background music, like reference background music, reference sound effects. So pretty much by the time the studio or the whatever production house watches the cut, it's a pretty almost a finished product in a sense.
Yeah.
At least the impact that it has should be the same as the finished product is generally the idea. How do you manage your time? Because especially I think when you're really organized, what people don't realize, I think you need time. You need to give time to people to organize things.
Yeah.
Right. And that takes a little bit of discipline. And if you don't have time and you're just going ahead and making timeline after timeline, I think it inevitably happens that by the end of the project, you need to look for something and you can't find it. So how do you manage your time, and how do you still manage to deliver on the craft of it as well as the technical organizational part of it?
So that's the 2.5%. I rarely manage to meet deadlines. I just give up. Khatam nahi hua hai. Too bad. You don't want a shoddy product. I don't want to give you a shoddy product. You have to buy me time. And most of the times my directors have bought me that time because I have, like you said, last few years I've been fortunate to work with directors who understood that it's okay. There are days when I've just spent listening to music. In fact, in my current project, it's a joke. My co-editor is like, every time I walk into your room, you're either cutting a sex scene or you're just listening to music. What are you doing? So I'm like,
I think that's a good life.
So I'm like, I'm not interested in the sex, of these people, but it's there. It's been shot. I have to cut it. And music, I have to listen to, to figure out what I want to put. I don't have a bank because earlier people used to have these hard drives of music that, they used to go and plug in. Mujhse wo nahi hota. I tried it for a few years, but I just found that was a waste of my time because to sit and label and because I listen to it and the emotion that it gives is what I like to go with. And the same music can have very different meanings in different projects. So I can't do that. I have to listen to it afresh. So my best friend is YouTube, so So having said that, that's my disorganized part where I'm like, abhi time chahiye yaar. Which is why I'm also very anal with my assistants. This is how my music and my SFX and everything has to be labeled and kept because otherwise your life's going to be miserable. Because you can't have me embarrassed in front of my director and producer where I can't find that one clip. You've got to label it and keep it properly. It takes you extra time. Too bad. That's what you've been hired for. So that for me is very important.
But do you find it's easy to communicate this? Because I think where all of us get a lot of requests for assisting and young people who want to assist. I feel like a lot of times they don't take these things seriously. I'm going to be very blunt about this because I'm trying to understand why this is so. The simple thing that you said, that things should be organized and labeled clearly, so you can find every clip and every audio clip, every video clip easily. I feel that is a bit of a struggle to communicate and to make a new person understand.
I've had to fire so many people because this wasn't happening.
Right.
And they think that associate thinks wo assistant ka kaam hai, assistant thinks ye mera kaam hai, main ye seekhne nahi aaya tha, but this is where it starts. And if you don't know your footage, how are you even going to, it's give me exports and, come to my assistants when I say wo change karna hai, wo track badalna hai, wahan music lagana hai. You're going to be clueless. If you are not organized for me, how are you going to be of any assistance to me? So there is definitely a lack of this. having said that, there are a bunch of hardworking people whom some we've had to whip, some we've not had to whip, and who've understood, and they've come with the thought of, I want to learn something. And I've made it very clear to them कि देखो तुमको creative काम करना है करो. I am no one to stop you, and I'll be more than happy if you cut a scene and it works. Great, you know, I would be very happy to give you the credit, you know, that you have done some amount of creative work, but there is no escaping this technical bit. That's what you're hired for. If you can't do this, you can do as much creative work, but if you're of no use to me.
True.
Because creative work, that's what I'm for. You're there to
and
just
also
handle.
No, absolutely, sorry to cut in, but I feel like the technical work and the organizational part also feeds in to the creative part of it.
Absolutely, which is,
and they're not actually like very separated, because I think when you are working in an organized project, you're working, it sort of declutters your mind in a way.
Yeah, because you know, when somebody's like I said, I like to have my footage kept in a certain way so that I remember where, what, like the episode I did 3 months ago, I know exactly uska footage kya hai, because it was kept for me in a certain way, so I have it in my memory. But if you're not going to keep it, and today when my director is telling me, yeah, iska na close up missing hai, so I can very confidently remember my footage and tell them close up hai, nahi hai, acha reaction mein ye options hai mere paas. Rather than at this, you know, when I'm locking my episode, I can't be opening my footage and saying, haan, nahi hai, haan hai, acha dikhte hain. That's all part of the organization. And adding to what you're saying, that, you know, once the assistants put that thing into organization, it's easy for me to communicate to them, for them to understand me. And then, you know, then I can depend on them to say कि यार वो emotion उठा के दो मुझे वहां से ये shot लाके दो.
Exactly.
Because right now you are not, you know, in the state where you're able to give me an edit which is 100%, but at least you can aid me in reaching that. You can't aid me if you haven't organized the whole, you know. And it's very important because that's the basis of the whole edit. It's not a small job, so it can't be taken lightly.
No, I think you've put it really well, that if you're not at the point where you can help with the edit per se, you can help with, you know, getting the editor to that point. That's actually a very good point. But do you feel, so both of us, we have assisted people before we started working independently. Do you feel like it's important to assist? Because there are a lot of contemporaries who have not assisted either, which is also a way of approaching the matter. What do you feel like, given a choice, would you, if you had just gotten a film straight out of the institute, would you have spent time in kind of assisting first, or would you have just taken up the film?
I think it's important to assist, because I was very fortunate. I got an independent film very early on in my career. And, you know, when I was doing it, I had a great time. But, you know, in retrospect, I never got much of a chance to see how other editors work. And there's no other way to do it. Like, you know, you and I can discuss our edits and the way, you know, our directors behave, our producers react, the feedback we get. But I don't know how you cut. I don't know how you approach your footage.
Right.
And there are so many editors, good, bad, you know, whatever it is. The more you assist, the more you see how they handle footage, how they turn it around on its head. And every project is an experience, you know. No two projects are same. So, you know, how they deal with the directors, what's thrown in their face when the director comes and says, "Maza nahi aa raha hai." What does it mean? That's like a line which you hear every day. I hear every day. Maza nahi aa raha hai. Kya nahi work kar raha hai? You know, it's really a decoding process. You have to decode what your director is going through. For all you know, usko maza nahi aa raha hai because he had a fight, you know, he was stuck in a traffic jam, and that's why usko aaj maza nahi aa raha hai. Kal wahi edit pe maza aayega.
Yeah.
So half of your time. So if it's interesting to experience that, you know, when you're assisting. And of course, you don't have any responsibility in terms of, it's not on your head to make the film work. So, you know, you can just sit back and see how this whole thing operates. It's fascinating. Each director, each producer, each script has its own demands, you know, and how editors tackle that is half the game.
Also, because even technically, actually,
Hmm.
every project has its own problems, which are
Exactly.
very
Yeah.
unique to it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So,
yeah,
even now, at every project that's going out for post, like koi EDL match nahi hoga, koi AF match nahi hoga, despite you've been, for 13, 14 years, we've been giving EDLs and OMFs, but they still don't link, they still don't match. So those fuck ups are common,
yeah,
but unique at the same level, with
yeah,
each
yeah.
project.
We spoke about how we are constantly chasing deadlines. Are there days when you don't feel you're 100%, and when you're feeling really jaded and exhausted? How do you deal with that kind of slump?
Very many days, especially weekends.
Mm.
uh, the thing is, I still go in for a few hours every day. Even
Mm.
on my worst days, if I can,
Mm.
it's just about, suddenly some idea will come. I don't do too many projects at the same time. I do maximum one film at a time. So unless something is very pressing or I'm really out of it, health wise, I try and go every day to my edit. In fact,
Mm.
some of these, office boys are like, Madam, ab to roz aa jati hai. But I feel, yeah, even if I do like that half a scene somewhere, it's like
Yeah,
it's like keeps adding up to make your entire timeline, or just sorting that one scene out. I try to push myself because it's literally a universe that we have to live in for a few
yeah,
months. Get into those characters, get into the story and those conversations. That room is like this vortex that we have to go in and then pull ourselves out and erase our
yeah,
memories and go home. So I like to enter it every day for a bit so that I'm still in that universe. I'm not breaking my link to it,
right.
and I kind of I think we all have this thing that we live with those
Yeah.
characters for a while.
Yeah, I do agree on that, because I was reading something the other day, and there also, this person said that it's not always important to bring your 100% or your A game every single day.
Yeah,
It's more important to just show up.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah,
think, yeah, that kind of aligns with what
yeah,
you're saying as
yeah.
well. Good thought. Good thought. Um, okay, so again, moving on to two slightly, I think, sensitive issues for editors and people in post: budgets and credits. Uh, so, with regards to both, do you think the editors community as a whole is adequately compensated for the amount of work and effort that they put into their jobs?
Absolutely not. I refrained myself from telling you earlier that when I'm first considering a project, budget is primary before the story
Yes, of
also.
course. Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah,
is, and let's be honest, yeah, we're all working to pay our bills.
absolutely.
If
Yeah,
our bills
yeah,
were paid, we would all be happy sitting at home watching Netflix
yeah,
and going on
yeah,
holidays. It's a job at the end of the day. We're all working making a living out of it. So budget is important, and they're atrocious. Most films, and even to the extent that that मेरा इतना time उसमें जाने वाला है, which is also one of the issues I consider, when I'm saying yes to a project. How much effort and time it's going to take from me.
yeah.
If you're giving me too less time, I chicken out right from the
Mm,
beginning because I'm not a fast
mm,
editor. I need my time to deal with it, and I'm very sacrosanct about my Sundays. About I will not go to work on Sunday, regardless of whether Saturday was working or Monday was working, because that's my day off. That's my day where my brain is dealing with other things. I can't deal with your shit. Budgets, of course, primary because my time is worth my money, because if I'm putting in so much effort, I need to be compensated enough to say, I'm not going to worry about those things. I'm going to give you all my brain space. And if you're not going to compensate that, my brain is going to constantly keep thinking who's paying the phone bill, who's paying the rent, who's paying the auto ka bhada. So, those things are very important and very, in our case, in our community, it sucks.
yeah. Also, so following from when we're talking about pressure at work, I think one of for most of us, I think one large kind of problem can arise if, for whatever reason, we are not aligning with the director's vision. And I think also because as you grow in your career, you also develop a kind of strong approach to the edit. What do you do? Has it happened to you that you found yourself not aligning with the director? And in which case, how do you kind of resolve that for yourself?
So in one case, it happened, and we split ways, and
Okay.
I was okay to not get the credit because I quit pretty early on without contributing much to the project.
Hmm.
And other than that, it's never been, credit has not been an issue so far in my career. But yes, I've had, like we've discussed it. A lot of people in the fraternity have had an
Yeah.
issue,
Yeah.
which I really don't know, because our contracts are so warped that it's very difficult to crack through that, right now.
Yeah, I think even if you want to like leave a film,
It's
it's
very
almost like you
complicated.
can't. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very complicated because I have spent time, I have not been monetarily compensated, and I'm
Yeah.
not going to get any credit for it. So that entire year or 6 months has just become like a zero in my, resume or career or timeline or whatever it is. So it's kind of a little bizarre, and I am also the kind of person who does one project at a time. And, like I said, I totally am into that world and universe and trying to deal with it. Sometimes things are not working out because the director's vision or production's attitude or whatever, there are hajar reasons for not aligning. But our contracts are really horrible, where we really don't have an exit clause but to, say, okay, forget the money, forget everything, I'm just out of it. That really leaves you with nothing. And a lot of people have been subject to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So just going back a little, and when we were talking about your process, what I also wanted to know is because it's also kind of linked with the director's vision. Sometimes, like the director's mark takes very specifically for performance. How far do you feel like you need to kind of go with that, or in your first cut, do you go with your own takes? Or vice versa, and then kind of take it from there?
I never look at OKTs.
Oh,
I just ignore it. Because I also feel by the time the directors look at the first cut, they've forgotten what was shot, kya tha.
Right.
Half the time they're telling me, wo shot liya tha, and there's no such shot.
Which is not, yeah.
So, so as in, I'm not, they're not at fault because, there's so much that goes on a shoot, and it's only human to forget, things. You're looking at your footage only after 15, 20 days of your shoot is over. You've zoned out and you're looking at it from so many different perspectives. Ki ye shoot kiya tha, wo lighting tha, yahan camera to nahi hila, yahan heroine kya kar rahi hai. The directors have 50 other things going on. We are only looking at story and the presentation. They have a lot of other things to consider. So in my experience, most of the times the directors don't even remember what they had marked as okay takes. So I pretty much ignore it. I go with what works for me. Unless they're very specific कि नहीं वो एक gesture था जो मुझे चाहिए, which makes then sense, and you try and at least, But मतलब I'm not so headfast about कि वो first cut में होना चाहिए. If it works, there is there are plenty more cuts to come for us to give it a shot, and if it works, great. मतलब whatever works for the film or the scene.
Okay. So following from when we spoke about, say, project organization and how you organize your workflow, do you have a particular editing software that you favor? I know which one it is, but
I actually don't. I really no, I don't. I'm very happy to shift because
I thought you were an avid person.
Which I've had to do now because FCP went, and I quit FCP before it became obsolete because FCP was really giving me a lot of trouble. Right. And when I sat on Avid, my first day was like, oh, I need to put this thing over here. How do I do it? And my poor assistant, he had the patience to really teach me. And then, of course, for advertising, I use Adobe Premiere because I just find it easier with graphics, and Avid is really clunky with graphics and text.
Yeah.
I shit in my bricks every time I have to do a text typing, which is there in every film.
Yeah.
Messaging is happening, and I'm like, "Abhi ye kaise hoga?" I totally freeze out. So
right. So
for films,
Avid for features and series.
and Premiere for advertising and graphics related stuff. And I really keep telling, a lot of forums I've read, I'm an Avid this thing, I'm an FCK. I'm like, it's like driving a car, dude.
Yeah.
It's a machine. It can't rule you. We've got to rule it. It's made for our service,
exactly.
not the other way around.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, I'm not sold on anything. Whatever works. Features for Avid because the timelines are a lot more sorted and less renders and those layers and all.
Yeah.
And Premiere Pro because it's graphics friendly.
I agree. So when we've spoken about all of this and we know the level of stress that we are under on a daily basis, how much of that are you carrying home, and how do you kind of maintain a work-life balance?
So like I said, I take my Sundays off.
You take your Sundays.
That's one thing I have been very clear from my first film. I'm not working on a Sunday unless somebody is like really dying and the film is like, not going to release because I did not go on a Sunday, which is never the case. I'm a minion. That's my way of, I need to. That's my personal space. And I try as much as I can. I try to start in the morning and finish by evening. I can't work late nights. We've been there, done that, doesn't work anymore. Yeah. And for creativity, certainly not. Yeah. So, which also is, a conversation I try to have with my directors. Are you going to be a night person, a day person?
So early on.
I do, not so blatantly, like I won't reject a project for that purpose.
Yeah.
But I like to, understand how they plan to work because I'm not a night person. If you intend to work through the nights with me, my productivity is going to be so low. I'm going to not be an asset to the film.
Yeah.
So this I kind of try and these are my things which I kind of the checklist that I do on, and carrying work home. You can't avoid it because again, you're creating a universe. You're living in it. Your bad days at work, somebody's called your edit bad, it hurts you. So you go back and it affects the rest of your day. And it also, kind of pushes you to what you have to do next. So not taking it home is not an option. It comes with you regardless. And but I try to be a little regimental, like a lot of people like to jab uthenge tab edit pe pahunch jayenge. Nahi, I like to wake up. I like to get to my edit on time, which also gives my team an understanding ki itne baje tak ye kaam karke rakhna hai ya itne baje machine milega, so that there is no, again, this is part of my organization. I need to be edit at a certain time. I try and exit at a certain time, and so that, my assistants, they have the time to do whatever they have to execute, and they have a deadline too. You can't be telling me, abhi aapne machine nahi diya to main 4 din ke baad line up karke dunga. So I've given you your space. I need my space.
Great. Finally, I want to know if there's one thing that you could change about the edit process or the our community, either the process or as a whole, the community. Is there something that you'd change?
Please pay us better and respect our time.
Yes.
And you make us wait endlessly on changes and feedback. And, it's just like you wouldn't tell a DOP ki chal aaj shoot karte hain or yaar acha nahi hua. It takes an effort to put together a shoot, So I don't like this thing of fighting the production saying mere assistants ko khana khila do ya unke paise de do yaar, unke food bills, so it's just that, just treat us a little better because this is not something like my co-editor has sometimes put, hum ghar se nahi leke aate ye kaam. We've mutually agreed to do this, so we expect certain resources to be given to us, and this endless making up your mind ki maza nahi aaya hai is not,
Mm.
is like, just be a
Yeah.
little clear what are we aiming for.
Also, because I think something that you were also saying, that because we work for such an extended period of time, it's not like a 3 month long film shoot. We're
Yeah,
there for 6 months, 8 months. And I think the general expectation is that our lives will stop for those
yeah,
6, 8 months.
yeah,
But the problem is, this is our life. We
yeah,
are going to be continuously working. And that
yeah.
does that mean, therefore, that our lives are just permanently at a halt
Exactly.
for
Like
every.
understand that there is a coexistence,
Yeah.
And strangely enough, I went for a film to US where I was living with my director, and I was very worried because Hindustan India mein to yahi hoga na ki if you're living with the director, you're 24/7 just discussing the
Hmm.
film and
Yes.
working on it.
Yes.
Matlab you do your morning potty and you're supposed to be on your edit machine. There is no downtime.
Yeah.
Versus when I was there, we started at work at 10 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock, regardless of what is our plan. Our plan was to just, maybe, just take the dog for a walk. But 7
Right.
o'clock, the machine would shut. And one day I couldn't sleep and I started working on a song in the middle of the night. And my director walked in saying, "What's wrong with you? Why? Why would you do that? We'll wake up in the morning. We'll start afresh. Why are you doing this? It's not needed." We have
Yeah.
so it was like a jolt to me that somebody respects the fact that I'm on here on a limited time. We have limited resources, but they respect that it's my downtime. I could just be staring at a wall, but that's my time, which I
Yeah.
find absolute disregard over here.
Yeah.
People take these extended smoke breaks and lunch meetings and whatever is happening, and we're just
Yeah.
sitting over there and twiddling our
Yeah.
thumbs,
And waiting. Yeah.
waiting how to
Yeah.
hum aage kaam kare. And that's not, because I'm going to be totally off mood, so it's not going to
Yeah.
serve any purpose. So yeah, I wish
Yeah.
people would respect time a little more in the edit room.
Great. I think that's some really good points that have come our way. And I think that's a lot for all of us to think about, not only editors. But thank you so much, Dipika. This was really
Thank you
nice,
so
even though
much.
we are, fairly in touch and communicate
Yeah,
a fair bit, but it's always very nice to talk to an editor as an editor. And
yeah, yeah,
that's what the series is hopefully going to be about.
yeah.
So thank
Looking
you so
forward
much
to
for
all your
doing this.
other members coming on board and listening to them.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this video, then please like it, share it, comment on it, and subscribe to this channel so you're tuned in for our upcoming episodes.